This video is sponsored by 11 Labs. 100% of the voiceover in this video following this intro is generated by artificial intelligence. They clone my voice and it is completely crazy. For more info, you can refer to the pinned comment and or the description. The film opens on a beach where our cast of 5 drunk college students try to make the most of their last night in Mexico. We have the classic final girl Nat, her frat boy boyfriend Tom, their high energy frat boy Greg, the frat boy who may just be dying first Tyler, and of course Millie, the party girl and McQueen's biggest fan. Empowered by the whistling of the boys, Millie pulls Nat from her boyfriend as the men begin to chant her name, encouraging her to break out of her shell. She begins dancing and they cheer as Millie locks eyes with Tom, the two sharing a knowing look. The night goes on as the boys are roped into dancing. Greg eventually pours the last of the tequila for the group, which leads to an impromptu session of spin the bottle where the loser has to go to the bar and get more liquor. Away from the group, Nat begins to record a message for her family atop a flight of stairs when a wheelchair-bound beggar forces his foot in the door. As he holds out a cup of change, seeking financial assistance, Nat agrees, reaches into her purse, and drops a number of coins into the man's cup, offering to buy him something to eat. She even goes so far to clarify in Spanish when he doesn't seem to understand her. He politely declines and offers her a cigarette in exchange for her gesture before gently probing into some more personal questions. This is where she should politely excuse herself as he asks where her friends are. Benign as it may seem, it is actually a leading question. But making the kind choice instead of the smart choice, Nat informs this complete stranger that she is separated from her friends and that they're distracted by partying, literally inviting a potential murderer cosplaying a disabled man to be her last contact on Earth. Lucky for her, the beggar is much more interested in playing the archetype of the harbinger than being part of a kidnapping ring, and naturally segues from her friends partying on the beach to his missing legs. With the assistance of some careful miming, the beggar explains that with a single chomp from a great white shark, both of his legs were sliced clean off. The rest of the group, apparently not able to spend more than a minute without a drink, make their way to the top of the stairs where Nat is. Asking to be introduced to the beggar, the guy keeps babbling about sharks, confusing the drunks even more. Tyler insensitively says that it's a good thing they're leaving tomorrow, which sets the beggar on a Spanish tirade about how they need to listen to him, that they don't understand, and that they need to get out. Before he grabs Nat by the arm, saying that he's trying to warn them. After successfully drinking the night away, the group drunkenly stumbles along the coastline as they try to pass the remaining half a day in Mexico when Greg notices a pair of jet skis chained to the dock. Tom and Tyler put their liquid courage to good use. And after peering into the rental kiosk and finding nobody inside, Tyler grabs a nearby shovel and uses it to wrench the latch off the door so they can make their way inside and steal the keys. As great of an idea as a drunken joyride on a stolen jet ski sounds, it also seems like a great way to get shot or arrested. However, that's only the case if they can make it back. Drowning is the second highest cause of accidental deaths for young adults, with alcohol being a factor in upwards of 70% of cases. And Millie not being able to swim, I mean, really? Now, Nat had been protesting their decision-making the whole time, but the promise of churros and seeing Tyler manage to stay afloat after falling in convinces her to join along. Tyler and Greg take control of the 2 jet skis and throttle them to the limit, having a blast with water sports without needing a successful music career or underage girls. After passing a boat, however, Nat starts to panic, saying they're going too far out and begging Greg to take the jet ski back to shore. Tyler, on the other hand, has a better idea, playing chicken in the deep ocean. Because nothing says fun like a group of drunks driving top speed at one another with very little ability to turn. Our group has played their stupid game and won its prize. Tyler likely has a concussion, and Greg's tibia has exited the skin suit it calls home, seemingly trying to find out what is going on outside. I guess at least nobody is dead, right? The group is stuck at sea, and nature gives them the middle finger by having the tides themselves swallow the things they left by the dock, which, at the same time, conceals the fact that someone may be out there in desperate need of help. Nat wants to get Greg treated, so the group comes up with a similar idea, except they want to leave the girl who can't swim and the man with a concussion in the middle of the ocean. Some friends you are, but maybe the crash didn't sober them up all the way. Unfortunately for Nat's churro cravings and Greg, the jet ski won't start, so at least Millie, Tyler, and the millions of bacteria forming on Greg's life-threatening injury will have a better chance at surviving this bender. Looking back a little, a few small choices could have massively affected the whole situation they have found themselves in. When Tom and Tyler realized the kiosk was closed, They could have checked to see if there was any indication of when it would open, then plan to come back a bit later to pay for the jet skis. That way, when the group doesn't come back later on, the owner would know that his missing jet skis are in the middle of the ocean, and not on a pickup truck 3 blocks away, ready to be put on Facebook Marketplace. Once the party is injured while stranded in the middle of the ocean, however, the best course of action would be to check the jet skis for any useful supplies, first aid kits, any string, flare guns, life jackets, etc. If they can find something hard enough, they could also use it to splint Greg's leg to prevent it from moving and being damaged further. After taking care of the emergency first aid, leave any spare supplies with Tom and Nat as they're the best swimmers without any major injuries. They could use the half-sunken jet ski to help them float if they get tired. Millie could also bring Greg and Tyler to shore before turning around to find Tom and Nat before they drift off too far, while Tyler and Greg form a rescue party and get treated. Instead, they decide to drag Greg back into the water to keep his bones nice and wet, so they can pull the seat off and try to repair the engine, but no dice. Once they have the seat up, they can't remove the cover to even attempt to find the problem. Greg starts screaming from the pain and Tyler asks for help pushing him up. Shortly thereafter, Nat comes up with a great idea, using Millie's phone screen as a mirror to try to signal for help. Millie isn't too amused by it, however, as nobody has come to rescue them yet. If she knew how close someone was to seeing it, though, perhaps she wouldn't be so pessimistic. Another reason to worry comes up from Tom, however. He notices a landmark on the shoreline is no longer visible, and with that easy-to-miss observation reasons that the tide is pushing them out to sea. Because of this, he urges Nat to change tactics from trying to use the phone as a mirror and instead try to get a signal. Delirious from lack of blood and the heat, Greg starts talking about how thirsty he is and begins scooping the seawater into his mouth. Thankfully, the rest of the group stops him, but Nat notices a text message from Tom to Millie, with the two of them together in bed that very morning. An argument breaks out as tensions flare and Tom accidentally smacks the phone out of Nat's hand and into the water. Now this argument is the last thing we need, and our best method to signal for help is now at the bottom of the ocean. Nat is now focused on her relationship instead of survival as Tom dives into the ocean to try to retrieve the phone, searching among the reefs as the shark swims dangerously close behind him. The group stares into the water searching for Tom as he shows no sign of surfacing. Suddenly, Millie is pulled under the waves as the group looks on horrified. Luckily for her, however, it was only Tom, trying to surface while out of breath with her phone in hand. He tries to hand it to Nat as a peace offering, but she's uninterested. So he instead gives it to Millie as she climbs aboard the jet ski. The sole member of the group actively working for their survival now off task. The group lists lazily in the ocean as they take care of Greg still bleeding out aboard the jet ski. No longer signaling for rescue, Millie tries apologizing to Nat, making terrible excuses for the actions of both herself and Tom before revealing that Tom is likely a serial cheater already. Okay, I don't see how that would improve Nat's mood and get her on board with helping everyone survive, but they're not in this kind of situation because of good decision making. Tyler, remembering the boat they passed coming out into the middle of the ocean, decides it would be a good idea to swim blindly in the direction they saw it alone, without the assistance of the jet ski cum raft. He reasons that it's a proactive method to try to get help, because if they just wait and do nothing, there's no guarantee someone will come rescue them. Which is a fair thing to argue. He does have head trauma after all, as Nat points out, but she doesn't actually try to stop him. Instead, she chooses to be passive-aggressive when Millie gives him a bracelet for good luck. The group cheers him on as he swims away, his fate left to the tides and currents as they watch him swim for their sakes. Soon, however, the group notices a shark swim up behind him and their cheers turn to screams as it follows after him. Already out of earshot, the shark submerges and they can only stare on in horror at the fate that awaits their friend. Fortunately, shark attacks are uncommon and are only really a problem in movies, like this one. Our fishy friend reveals himself approaching the jet ski to Tom's horror, as he flips it in his attempt to join the others safely aboard, hurling the injured Greg, Nat, and Millie, the emotional support anchor, into the water. Millie, unable to swim, flounders about to stay afloat, which is the opposite of what she should be doing in this situation. Tom drags her to the jet ski and gets her safely aboard, but Nat, unable to swim with Greg, asks for help. Tom once again shows his heroic side as he dives in to try to help until the shark snatches a hold of Greg's injured leg and drags him into the depths. Millie and Tom watch on in horror as Greg's watch, wound around Nat's hair, drags her alongside him deep into the murky depths before snapping off of his wrist, freeing her as he's continually dragged deeper. Quickly surfacing before swimming back to the makeshift raft, Nat climbs aboard and the three stare out into the tides. Greg, however, never rises from the depths and wait, wasn't Tyler supposed to die first? Let's take this moment to find out what we could have done better. While Greg was delirious and weak from blood loss, likely making him a lost cause once he was grabbed, sharks in real life generally don't have to deal with fish that have arms and haven't adapted to deal with that. So survival experts recommend punching them in the nose or gills to get them to release their grip if they manage to get a hold of you. Avoiding getting bit in the first place can be as easy as grabbing them by the nose and pushing them away. Hopefully Tyler knows this. Millie is desperately trying to get a signal as the group's morale is at an all-time low. She decides to be a leader, delivering motivational speeches such as, "What if nobody comes to rescue us? Or what if Tyler can't find the boat?" Which against all odds he has, by the way, and in spite of Tom giving her the lovely idea to shut up, orates the near impossible philosophical wonder of, what if the shark swims miles away, eats Tyler, and then comes back and eats us? Oh my god. Someone has to be putting stupid juice in her hair dye. This is not the time and place to be talking about these kinds of things. They're in a survival situation. They need to focus on getting out, getting rescued, or finding, how many women Tom has slept with. Nat, please stop arguing. Tom has made it clear there is more than enough of him to go around and you have a bigger fish to fry. Speaking of, closer to land, Tyler is still going strong, having found the boat. But unfortunately, the fisherman is on lunch and not looking out to sea, and Tyler is just out of earshot. At least he won't have to hear Tyler suffer. Back with our surviving cast, the tempers have cooled and 9 whole hours into their ordeal, Tom discovers the front hood of the jet ski and peers in to find its electrical wiring. Now he's a history major and not a tradesman, but it is shocking to me how little they've done to take note of what the jet ski could hold. It shouldn't really be considering Millie takes this time to try to drink seawater, but Nat stops her, still having her best interest at heart. Instead, she tells her to try licking her lips, which is better, but still a bad idea as your saliva will actually start to digest them, causing your lips to be drier and making you more dehydrated overall. The best thing to do would be to tough it out in this already tough situation, but maybe the temporary relief would be a mental victory and help improve their morale. It's tough to say. Day turns to night, giving them a break from the sun, but of course, bringing its own challenges. They group together for warmth in the chill of the night, and are once again visited by their great white friend. They wonder if sharks hunt at night, and while many do, great whites are diurnal hunters, using the outline of the sun to spot their prey as they attack from the depths. This visit should be good news considering they like to spend their nights in shallow water drifting against the current to conserve energy to hunt during the day. But my friends, this is a movie shark, so things aren't quite so fortunate. Still deep in the ocean, they spot a light in the distance and use the backlighting on Millie's phone to try to signal for help. Unable to tell if their rescue pleas are being seen in the dark, Nat volunteers Tom to swim past the shark to try to get help. He agrees reluctantly and after a brief moment tentatively lowers himself into the water as something stares at him from below. For the first time in nearly 12 hours, Nat uses words of encouragement telling Tom he can do it, and he slowly swims forward. A splash in the dark startles everyone as Tom frantically returns to the boat, unable to traverse the same waters his friend died in hours earlier. He apologizes as Nat prepares to make the swim herself, telling the others, as Tom tells her she doesn't have to go, that if they see anything to yell out to her, before she descends into the waves and swims toward the light. Approaching the source of the light, Nat discovers a corpse among wreckage rather than any seaworthy vessel that could bring them to safety and begins to panic, splashing in the sea in a desperate attempt to distance herself from the shark-ravaged man. Noticing the splashing, the pair aboard the jet ski panic, Millie telling Tom to do something as the pair watch on as Nat does her best impression of a struggling fish. Paddling backwards blindly through the water she's grabbed. Tom, in an attempt to save her, has swam over, and after the surprise she manages to calm down, and they return to where Millie awaits them, spending the rest of their night uneventfully. In spite of their many undisturbed hours, the stress is clearly affecting Nat as she stares toward the seabed, only to be attacked and jolted awake from her dreams. All of them awake now in the mid-morning light, they spot the supplies from the wreckage Nat waded through the night before. Grabbing planks to use as makeshift oars, they paddle to the body in order to strip him of his life jacket for Millie and relinquishing the dead man to the depths below. Slowly but surely, they pedal their way towards shore after drifting about for a full day. At least they hope so, as they've lost their direction as the tide swept them along. Tired from paddling, Millie tries to take a break, but Nat assures her that they can't take a break in the situation they're in. Millie doesn't want to hear any of it, however, and gives Nat a piece of her mind. Nat in turn responds with the same choice words, telling her to screw herself as the shark sides with her, leaping aboard the jet ski to try to bite her before Tom fends it off with a swing from his oar. The shark falls back into the water and the group loses track of it, until it emerges from the shadow of the boat and takes a bite out of Tom's calf before Nat can stab it in the eye and get it to swim off. Nat uses her shirt to wrap up Tom's leg and decides that rather than continuing to try to paddle to safety, they need to once again try to work on the engine, a machine they still don't understand. Removing the seat, they're once again met with the case protecting the machinery still screwed down tight, and decide they need to break the case protecting the parts beneath it to repair whatever may be broken. A decent idea, but unfortunately, the shark makes a return before they can continue with the plan. It slowly circles the trio instead of ambushing them from below like some sadistic slasher villain before hurling the group haplessly into the waters below. Nat and Millie frantically swim toward one another as the shark breaches the surface of the water with Tom in its jaws before tossing him aside like a seal juggling a ball in order to continue playing with his food. Nat drags the injured Tom back aboard the jet ski as Millie paddles her way towards them. She tries to hoist herself aboard, but the shark sneaks up from beside her and bites into her waist. Nat stares in horror, realizing she only succeeded in rescuing the top half of Millie before dropping her lifeless body into the bloody tides. Tom, not understanding the emotional impact of Nat's hat trick of witnessing corpses, cries out in pain as the shark takes Millie's upper torso beneath the waves to snack on. The empty life jacket emerges moments later as Nat holds onto an injured Tom. Adrenaline pumping, Nat removes the seat and grips onto the hard plastic casing beneath, wrenching it until she snaps off a makeshift shiv. She grips down again, talking to Tom and keeping him conscious by having him answer trivia. Nat manages to remove the rest of the casing and quickly spies the problem, a gas line which seems to have been torn in half that poses a couple of questions. How did the flexible gas line manage to tear under two different layers of hard protective coatings that didn't appear damaged? And why did the group repeatedly try to start the jet ski when they should have been smelling the gas pooling beneath them? Regardless of these questions, Nat manages to MacGyver up a solution, but it's not without its risks. Tucking her shiv into her waistband with a surprisingly familiar motion, Nat psyches herself up before diving into the sea and swimming towards the life jacket. As she works the inflation tube out of the jacket, the shark swims past her and slowly pushes Tom and the jet ski away from her as he screams in horror, trying to warn her. The shark loops around, swims near the surface of the water for dramatic effect, as Nat draws her weapon ready for the fight to come, breaching the waves and biting down as Nat swings her blade and gets dragged beneath the surface. Triumphantly, however, she returns injured but alive and paddles her way to the jet ski to put her plan into action. Nat fixes the gas line together by fitting the two halves together with the tubing she retrieved. Shaking, she pulls Tom into the seat and tries to start the jet ski. It turns and turns, eventually starting as the injured pair make their way toward the shore. Land in sight, their hopes are lifted and dashed as the shark returns with an unfulfilled vengeance, biting a hole into the jet ski which slowly fills with water, slowing them down. Tom, seeing the shark swim alongside them as they're approaching shore, decides to reenact the heroic scene of Jack drifting away in the Titanic to save Rose, telling Nat to let her parents know he was in fact a stand-up guy as he hurls himself into the ocean to lessen the weight on the jet ski. Nat turns around, desperately pleading with Tom to climb back on, but he knows he's too heavy. The shark would catch them if he were to survive, and 40 full seconds after he left his fate to the ocean. The shark finally decides to grant his wish of a heroic sacrifice. Nat stares on as Tom is held at the surface to flail in his final moments before leaving her truly alone, as she makes her way toward the not-so-distant coastline. In the rocky shallows just offshore, Nat manages to capsize the jet ski, barely unable to touch the bottom. The shark, not one to miss a chance, delivers a final Hail Mary and reappears, propelling itself after her as she tries to swim the final few feet towards safety. Against the odds, the shark nearly beaches itself on the rocks as Nat narrowly avoids death, managing to touch her feet down on the solid ground of the ocean floor and walk towards the rocky beach to collapse after the ordeal before rising up and making her way down the beach to try to find civilization and put this all behind her. But what do you think? Does Nat ever manage to get that churro, or will she collapse from her injuries? There's no way to tell, but that's it from me until next time, my friends. Remember to like and subscribe if you haven't. And as always, binge another one. Peace.